a former engineer who sometimes gives guest lectures in this class, Chikako Takeshita. Chikako Takeshita is a Japanese woman who got some of her undergraduate training from Stanford in the social sciences, I might add, then went to work for IBM Japan, where she trained and then worked as an engineer.
Hello, my name is Chikako Takeshita, and I'm here to talk to you today about Japanese culture for engineers, or engineering cultures in Japan. I think I'd like to start out with my personal background because I think it's important for you to know who I am to be talking to you about Japanese cultures. I was born and raised in Japan, and I spent most of my educational life in Japan. This is my 10th year in the U.S. I moved over here when I was 9, and until I was 10 years old, I lived in suburban New York with my family and went to an elementary school in America. I went back to Japan and went to a Japanese college. My junior year in college, I came over here as an exchange student and spent a year in California. I graduated from a Japanese college and then started working for IBM Japan in Tokyo. I worked there for 3 years, and then I was transferred to an IBM office in New York and worked there for 3 years. I've also spent a few years here and there in Europe and Asia, but that's not relevant at this point. So I will move on. My cross-cultural observations that I'm going to be talking about today will have to do mostly with the corporate life that I had with IBM. I worked as a systems engineer for IBM Japan in Tokyo and New York, and my customers were major Japanese banks, which made my experience quite interesting because there was a mixture of American and Japanese cultures in my workplace. I was also working as a female employee there, which added to my interesting workplace, I guess.
Now, what kind of a career are you going to have in engineering in Japan? And how do you understand that? Now, to the extent that you're an engineer who is going through college, unlike Ms. Takeshita, who became an engineer having not been trained as an engineer, although she did have a college degree, let's talk about what you would go through as someone who's going to college, gaining a training in engineering, and then going off, especially into a large corporation. And
I believe that the engineering students in Japan regard themselves as quite disciplined college students. The reason why I say that is because the college life in Japan is quite different from that of the students in the U.S. Typically, a Japanese four-year college student will regard their 4 years in college as their vacation years for their entire life. The reason is because throughout high school they'd be working very, very hard to pass a very difficult entrance exam to join as good a university as you can, because a good university will be your passport for working for a good Japanese company in the future.
And you've got to appreciate, and you'll appreciate after we talk about France, the importance of exams in admission pretty much around the world, but especially in Asian cultures. In the French case, the exams became important because the idea was to give people the opportunity to demonstrate that they had the merit they deserved to get into college, and got in on the basis of that merit rather than on the basis of income or class or connections or otherwise. And in Asian cultures, this fits in with the Confucianist interest and celebration of students and scholars. So as a Japanese child, you'll be preparing for the big exam. But for you, getting into college is the key. But once you get into college, in a way, it's a period of recess.
So once you join a university, you go off and get part-time job experiences or socialize, play sports, etc., etc. I was used to this mode when I went to the U.S. as an exchange student and discovered that my dorm mates disappeared after dinner and didn't return until midnight, and I had no idea where they were for several weeks until I discovered that, oh, they had gone to the library to do work for classes for the following day. Because in Japan, normally what happens is you go to lecture, you take notes. You may not even go to lectures, you may just copy your colleagues' notes, and then you take a final exam at the end, and that's all you do. So the college lives are quite different. However, the engineering students in Japan are required to attend their lectures and do their lab reports. So typically, they are more disciplined and they work hard in college. Also, I think that the engineering students regard themselves as having better chance of getting good employment because Japan has been short of engineers, and they are good candidates for employment.